This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Hi, welcome to The Clash, where we take real life and allow it to clash up against a Christian worldview. And when we're done, hopefully, we come away with something that's encouraging, helpful, useful, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get you to look at the world just a little bit differently and maybe with a lens where you can look at the world and see the world with God's eyes just a little bit. Now, This is the Masked Saint without the mask, Chris Whaley. My name is Jeff Dixon. We're going to have a special guest today that I'm pumped about. I mean, as a wrestling fan, I've seen this guy in the ring. I watched him, grew up watching wrestling, so this is cool for me. So I'm going to geek out a little bit as we kind of introduce our guest, but if you wouldn't mind, because I know he's a friend of yours and you've known him for a while.
And you get to ask the first question, so
No doubt.
That's great. Hey, listen, I had the wonderful opportunity to work in the wrestling business for 10 years. I was never a star like this guy that we're going to talk with today, but not only did I enjoy professional wrestling, I'm also a fan of professional wrestling. And there's just a couple of people in the business that I was a big fan of. And this is one of those guys. I'm just a big B. Brian Blair fan. And we have the great opportunity today to have one of the killer bees with us, B. Brian Blair. Brian, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm very humbled by your words. It's my honor, my pleasure to be here.
Hey, Jeff, kick it off.
Well, we're excited about it. And we're trying to maximize our time here. So, I mean, my first question is always, how in the world did you end up in the world of professional wrestling? I mean, at what point in your life did you say, this is it? And then how did you get there from when you decided that?
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. I grew up in Gary, Indiana, in like the armpit of the world. And when I was a little boy, my parents took me to church. And then one day I got to go to big people's church with them, and the sermon was on the power of prayer. And this is my first time. I'm very intent. So I'm listening to the pastor preach, and he said, if you're a righteous person, a good person, God's going to answer your prayers. He said, it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but God will answer your prayers. So at 8 years old, around 8 years old, I hear this, and man, that hit me really hard. So when I went home, I started thinking, what am I going to pray for? What am I going to pray for? And I said, well, maybe I'll pray for $1 million. And I thought, no, I'm too young. They'll take it away from me. And I enjoyed building model cars. And I had a couple of Corvettes that little plastic model cars, a blue one and a red one. And I said, I'll pray for 2 Corvettes. And I said, I don't have a driver's license. They'll take them away from me too. And I started thinking, and I said, I know I'm going to pray to be Superman. So I could not wait to pray because I had been thinking about this all Sunday. And it's time to go to bed. And Mom comes in. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. She leaves, and I got on my knees for my secret prayer. And I said, Dear God, please make me Superman. I want to be Superman. Can you please make me Superman? So I prayed this prayer for, at least a year. I was jumping off my bed and tying sheets around my thing and hitting my head against the wall. And obviously it hurt. I couldn't fly. And I remember there was snow everywhere in Gary, Indiana. And it was ice cold. And I'm walking down the sidewalk with this friend that lived way down at the other end of Arizona Street, Billy Kempinski, and he's got a boom box. And this song, My Green Tambourine, is playing on the boom box. And I said, somehow some brought it up, and I said, well, I'm going to be Superman. And he started laughing. He says, you can't be Superman. He said, Superman's a guy on television that outruns locomotives and leaps higher than buildings and wears a costume. He said, it's all fake. You can't do that. And he really burst my bubble. Well, the moral of that story is be careful what you pray for, because I was on television numerous times all over the world. I had 300-pound men jump on my chest to live to tell you this story today. I could hit the ropes like a speeding bullet. I could leapfrog a man with a single bound. So I think God made me as close to Superman as he possibly could in being a professional wrestler.
There you go.
That's the power of answered prayer, isn't it? That's great. That's cool.
I love it. Hey, you've touched on this. Would you mind sharing with our audience your journey of faith? How did you come to Christ?
Well, not long after that, I was in Gary, Indiana, with my siblings, and to swear my honest truth, I woke up. It was morning time. I usually was quick to get up. The other kids were sleeping, and I see three beings, and I was wide awake. I saw them, and they kind of had a shape like a bear head, and they were like beings though, and I was staring at them, and they were staring at me, and I went to touch them, and they all of a sudden they disappeared, and I'm looking at my brothers and sisters. I'm making sure I'm wide awake, and I mean, it was real. It was absolutely real. I went right from there and got some cereal, and I'm trying to comprehend what I just saw, and for some reason, nobody really led me to Christ. I had a firm belief just from that background, that experience. I was never perfect in my life. Doris Adkisson from the Von Erichs, Mrs. Von Erich, really helped me gain a lot more footing as far as what it really is to be a Christian and to believe and to search God's will, God's heart for me, and to understand biblical scripture. So that really helped me. But I've always tried to be a good guy, just because of that faith that was in me. I've always tried to help others. I've never done anything evil in my life. Yes, I've been a sinner, but I have never done anything evil in my life. I don't like evil. I don't want anything to do with it. And yes, we are facing a devil every single day. The spiritual, Satanistic spirit is alive and well, unfortunately. And I've been a member of Idlewild Baptist Church, my family and I, since 1996, and we've just built upon that belief, that foundation. I can't just tell you, I was an alcoholic and I needed something. I was on my last leg, and I reached out for Jesus Christ, and Jesus found me.
Yeah.
Jesus found me when I was 8 years old in my bedroom in Gary, Indiana.
That's
awesome. But in so many ways, though, that's such a better story, though, because again, man, you didn't have to go through some of the other stuff like other people have to do, and they get their back against the wall before they come to know Christ. And so, I mean, I love those kind of stories because I came to Christ as a kid as well. I mean, that's So, Brian, a lot of people that are wrestling fans will know your career, and they remember probably as quick as anything else, the Killer Bee phase. How in the world did you become a Killer Bee? How did that happen for you?
Well, I had worked for Vince Sr. and then in 1984, 83, well, actually 81, then 83, then 84, and he was getting ill, so Junior was taking over. I had a good run there, my last run, and they wanted me to come back and work for the Intercontinental title, but Eddie Graham wanted me back in Florida so I could be the Florida heavyweight champion again. And so I came back to Florida and was just waiting for the right time. I get a call from one of my best friends, Hulk Hogan. He says Vince Jr. is creating a tag team division in this division. Terry said Vince is creating a big tag team division, and he'd like to team you and Brunzell up. And I said, well, I was going to kind of go up in the single. One thing led. Okay, so. I had never met Jimmy before. We got to Brantford, Ontario, Canada. George Scott, the booker, comes up and he says, "Hey, we really want you guys to be, both high flyers. We need a name for you guys, and we need a name for you guys. And I'll be back in an hour and think of something catchy, or less than an." He said, "I'll be back in less than an hour. Think of something catchy." And Lanny Poffo sitting there, George the Animal Steel, Randy Poffo, a bunch of people. And I'm thinking, Blair and Brunzell. Jimmy's thinking, the wild, he's wild. And I'm thinking bees. And I remember the Miami Dolphins, one of my favorite football teams at the time. I believe it was the 82 Dolphins that were undefeated, 72 or 82. Bonicani, Baumgarten, all their linebackers began with B's, and they called them the Killer Bees. So I said, Brunsey, how about the Killer Bees? He said, wow, I like that. So George Scott hadn't even left the room yet to go speak to Vince. And so we had George Scott come back and said, George said, well, what is it? I said, how about the Killer Bees? He goes, the Killer Bees. He goes, I like that. Let me see what Vince says. So he comes back, like 15 minutes later or so. He said, hey, you guys are the Killer Bees. Officially, you're the Killer Bees, and you're going to be introduced as the Killer Bees tonight for your debut in Brantford, Ontario. And all of a sudden, Leapin' Lanny Poffo reaches in his bag, and he pulls out these bee tights, these Killer Bee tights. And he happened to have 2 pairs of Killer Bee tights. So we used his tights. And because he had a big hockey bag full of all kinds of gimmicks. It was funny. God bless Lanny. And so the Bees were born in Brantford, Ontario in 1984.
Man, that's awesome. Jeff, Brian was trained by the great Hiro Matsuda.
Wow. Okay.
Who also trained Lex Luger, I think. He trained Hulk Hogan. And
Yes.
And Brian has had the opportunity to wrestle a governor. How many people have wrestled? He wrestled Jesse Ventura in Missouri.
Okay.
They had their run-in. And if you remember, one of the first pay-per-views was Antonio Inoki against Muhammad Ali.
Right.
It was boxer fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian has also worked against Antonio Inoki. He has just done so much in the wrestling business, and I can't wait to talk to him more about that, and also some other great things that he's involved in. But I think we got a break coming up.
Yeah, we're going to take a break and pay a couple bills here. So, Brian, if you'll stick with us for a second, we're going to let everybody take a break, take a breather, and we're going to come back and then got some more questions for you. And I'm going to tee up a first question. I want to know a little bit about this thing called mask confusion.
Okay.
And you kind of explain that to me a little bit, if you can. And we'll go from there, okay?
Okay.
All right. We'll be back.
Hey, it's me again, and I just wanted to take a moment and invite you to check something out. It doesn't cost you a dime, but I think that it's something you might really enjoy. The Church at 434, where I'm the pastor, where Chris Whaley is on staff, we have an app, and that app is absolutely free. You can find it by going to the App Store for iPhones. Just type in the Church at 434, or go to Google Play for Android phones. Again, the Church at 434. And when you get there, you're going to find a number of resources that are designed just for you to encourage you in your spiritual growth, in your walk with Christ. There's going to be some things that will entertain you, that you'll laugh at, that will be fun. And you can also tap in and watch our worship services. You can see some of the films that we've made. You can see some of the activities that we've got. And you can connect to the ministry of the Church of 434, where Chris and I are a part of that on a weekly basis. And we would love for you to join us and become a part of that network with us. And so check out the Church at 434 app in the App Store or in Google Play, and you can visit with us there. Also, you can email us right through that app, and we'd love to hear from you. Just say, hey, I got the app, and I like it. If you get the app and you don't like it, we don't want to hear from you, but that's a whole different thing. Let's get back to the Clash. Welcome back. We are here, and we are continuing our conversation here on the Clash with Brian Blair. And as promised, just before we took the break, Brian, I got to ask about mass confusion. How in the world did that happen? How did that tactic come about? Where did you guys get that idea?
We were in Canada, and a gentleman named Billy Red Lion, he was before us, and he tag teamed with his brother as bad guys, and they used to put on masks and switch.
Okay.
And he said, you and Jimmy are so much alike in stature. As baby faces, I think it would really get over if you let the heels get enough heat on you and you put those masks on and you fight fire with fire and you switch and, try it out, just an idea. And Jimmy and I said, well, both of us love the idea. So we had Olivia Walker make us a couple masks, and then eventually, obviously, we had more made, but we had a Saturday night main event coming up with the Heart Foundation, and we were supposed to win the belts from them, and something happened regarding that. There's a long story in winning the belts, but we still were on the Saturday night main event segment, which turned out to be the highest, which is on NBC at the time. They did once a month for a year was their contract at that time in 1985. And we did the mask switch at the time, and Lord Alfred Hayes helped us name it Mass Confusion. So that's where that came from. Lord Alfred Hayes was his idea to call it Mass Confusion. Billy Red Lions first with the mask concept, and then Lord Alfred Hayes, Lord Alfred Hayes, who was a commentator at the time, came up with the Mass Confusion. And it was hot. If Vince, we had Jimmy and Vince were like oil and water, and they constantly were butting heads. And we had action figures, we had all kinds of stuff. And had, Vince came out with a mask to sell to the public, he would have made a fortune. But, all good things come to an end sometime.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up Bret Hart, because in his book, he said that the best tag match he ever had in his career was against the Killer Bees. That's quite a compliment there coming from Bret Hart.
That's a big compliment coming from Bret Hart, because he's wrestled all of them.
Yeah.
And we loved wrestling the Hart Foundation. They were great.
Yeah.
Bret's a super talent, super guy. I mean, the whole Hart family, the Knights, Harts, the Harts, all of them, they're friends.
Well,
still to this day.
I want to hear about something that you are very, very passionate about. It's a great organization. Matter of fact, I am a lifetime member of the Cauliflower Alley Club, and you are the president of the Cauliflower Alley Club. Matter of fact, you took over for Nick Bockwinkel, I think, didn't you?
Yes, I did, Chris, about 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And
tell us about it.
We're getting ready to have our 59th reunion in August, which is in Las Vegas at the Plaza Hotel and Casino. And anybody can become a member by going to caulifloweralleyclub.org. And if you like professional wrestling, we're probably the most efficient, effective charity on the planet. We've just since our last reunion in August, we've given away over $70,000 to over 47 different people, causes. And unfortunately, people in the wrestling industry a lot of them make a lot of money, and they just either have no insurance and get sick. So something happens, they didn't pay their taxes. We've saved a lot of houses because, a lot of people didn't pay tried to get, skimp on their taxes. And then in some states, you had to pay state taxes. So they didn't pay in some of the states. And then they find out, well, they're about ready to get their house taken away. And so anyway, we collaborate and get together, and it's a blast. Our next reunion, like I said, is this was last year's with Sting and the Dudleys and Kurt Angle and Buff Bagwell and JR and just lots of great stars there, and we have a blast, all for a good cause, all for a great cause. Black Bart just passed away, God bless him, last night, yesterday afternoon actually. I got the word yesterday evening, and we had helped him for the last 6 months, and so many people. I mean, you could go down the line. Again, a lot of people, we don't say their names unless they give us permission to, just to keep people from being hesitant about asking for a hand up. But the Cauliflower Alley Club is a tremendous part of my life. I'm very passionate about it. We help lots and lots of people. Even if you were a referee, an announcer, something happened to you, Chris, you'd be eligible, for assistance. I know you save your money, but you never know. Anybody can fall on a difficult financial time, and we're always there to help.
Hey, thank you, Brian, so much for that charitable work that you're doing through Cauliflower Alley Club. I was there a couple of years ago, and I was just amazed at the work that CAC is doing for those who need the help. Jeff, do you have something?
Yeah, Brian, I want to go back and before we go much further here, I want to kind of get an idea of the timeline. I mean, tell me what it was like for you to move from the world of professional wrestling into this community service mindset, but also beyond that, you went into politics as well. Let's talk about that for a minute and tell us what that was like.
I have just always enjoyed helping people, Jeff, and I always thought of community service politics as, applying business. My wife and I started Gold's Gyms in Tampa. We started with one, built 4 of them, sold them when they weren't for sale, which is the best time to sell anything. And so it was very good for us, thank God. And, then I looked at politics and as a way to help people. And the minute you put an R or a D after your name, you have people attacking you that you thought liked you. And it's just, it's pretty bitter, especially in local politics. But Hillsborough County is a huge county, and I was county-wide. So you've got over 1 million people, voting. And it's, well, at that time, there's like 700,000. 2008, so I was 2004 to 2008, 2002 to 2004 on the Citizen Advisory Committee. I sat on lots of different boards, but it's a very it's a full contact sport, politics.
Jeff, he actually beat a future mayor of Tampa. Isn't that right, Brian?
Yes, Bob Buckhorn.
Well, there's something else that I want to ask you about. We all know a very famous wrestler by the name of Brutus Beefcake. And he had a tragic accident, and that took place when you were there. You actually saved his life. Isn't that right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we were parasailing at a friend of ours, Mike Hannis's house up in Land O'Lakes. And the way that it worked was 2 people would hold the parasail up on the beach on the back of Mike's. Mike had like a sandy beach in his backyard, and he had a very high-powered Mastercraft, a pretty big lake. And you had to have somebody out in the middle to do 2 things: to make sure the line was got taut, to say when to go, so we could hold and kind of run with the person that was going up, and then he had to tell, Hannes when everybody, or the guy operating the boat, when everybody was ready to go. So this was towards the end of the day. Everybody had gone. A friend of mine, Ed Barbara's girlfriend, Tracy, really wanted to go. So she was the last one to go. And all day long, everybody had been getting loft right away. And you're supposed to turn in when you're in Beefcake's. He's in chest high water, and he's supposed to turn the opposite way just in case somebody doesn't get loft. And it just so happened on this one particular time, Tracy didn't get any loft, and myself and another guy, Paul Harvey, who his dad owned a hardware store. He was on one end, I was on the other, and we just watched Tracy tried to clear Brutus with her knees, and just as she was trying to clear him, he didn't really see her. He turned in rather than out, and boom, her knees hit him right in the middle of the face, smack in the middle of the face. And I mean, she's flying by then, like probably 20 miles an hour at least. And, knees are very hard, and right in the face, these bones are fragile. And he dropped straight into the water. So I dove immediately straight into that water, and I'm feeling around, finally I find Eddie Beefcake, and I drag him to the shore. I get him almost to the shore, and Paul Harvey comes in and he helps me. We get him right up at the end of the shore, and I sat him up and hit him in the back. Water's coming out of his mouth, and he really didn't lose consciousness. I'm saying, Beaver, open your mouth, open your mouth. And I hear, as I'm trying to get my fingers in his mouth to make sure that his esophagus, to make sure everything is cleared. There's seaweed in that lake and everything. I want to make sure there's nothing obstructing his breathing, and hitting him. I said, open your mouth, Beaver, open your mouth. And he kept saying, so he's trying to say, it is. And it broke his whole plate so that his top teeth were down on top of his bottom teeth, and there's a hole right in here because it had just cracked everything. We wound up getting like 15 or 18 plates and so many screws, and his teeth were actually sitting together. So Paul went and called 911, and I sat with Beaver until they got there, and it was very scary.
Well, thank God you were there, Brian, to save him, and I know he is eternally grateful that you were there that day. Jeff, we need to close this thing out.
We are, not because we want to, we're having a great time, but because if we don't, people will quit watching us because the show will be over with. So,
one more thing. Brian, tell us about your book.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's Truth Be Told on Amazon, and I promise you'll like it. It's a great book. It's 5 stars. You can get it on Amazon today, and or you can go to thekillerbstore.net, and I can autograph it for you. But also, Chris Whaley's got a super book, The Masked Saint, which was a great movie, which I truly enjoyed, Chris. That was awesome, and I enjoyed your book as well. So I appreciate that plug very much.
Well, thank you so much for that plug. I appreciate it. Jeff,
I appreciate you guys talking about your books. I wrote one too, but that's a whole different story, I guess. But at the end of the day, Brian, we want to thank you for being here. We thank you because you're not only a legend, but also I thank you for what you're doing with your life. You've used your life experiences, and you're impacting the world, and you've taken your faith into the world. And so for us, this is just a thrill. And so thank you so much for who you are and for whose you are and what you're doing. Chris, what do we need to say before we get out of here?
Hey, man, Brian's life has affected mine. Hope it's affected yours. Maybe you can go out and do something great. And when you do that, just remember, don't tap out.